What's the worst experience you've had with a roommate? Story 1. I let my boss crash at my second apartment about 15 years ago. It was a shitty timeshare call center where everyone did drugs and were pretty everyman types, so he and I were more friends than co-workers. Anyway, he loses his apartment and asks to stay with me for a couple months while he gets back on his feet, and I agree. He's a great dude, kind, smart, funny, confident, and a solid 350 pounds. I only mention the weight because it's relevant to the negative experience. So around a month into staying with us, he decides to get clean from his crippling opioid addiction. He's decided to cold turkey from a 20-a-day 10 mg hydrocodone habit, which for the uninitiated is pretty intense. I advised rehab, but he elected to lie on the couch in my living room for weeks, costing him his job, sweating his ass off and shaking under a blanket. The reason why his size was relevant: he sweat a lot already, and had to take pains to mitigate his body odor on normal days with varying degrees of success, but with the withdrawals and being mostly sedentary on that textile couch for weeks, the apartment started to smell like a hot-ass forest. It was a party house with a revolving door, and people just kinda stopped coming during his tenure there. Even with my bedroom down the hall's door closed, the stench was pervasive. It wasn't his fault. I liked the man, and he was trying to better himself and his life, so I put up with it. And he succeeded. Got himself a new place in the agreed time frame, stayed clean, and everything was hunky-dory. After he moved out, my actual roommate and I carried the couch to the parking lot dumpster, and it took several days to wear out the smell. We even did a thermal fog with an oil-based cherry-scented counterfactant, and it still didn't help. Kinda irrelevant, but just an addendum: we stayed in touch for a while back when I still had Facebook, and he got his life together. Got a good job as a realtor, lost a lot of weight, had a baby girl, found religion or whatever. Then after a few years of being off Facebook and radio silence, I get a call from my old roommate saying that he'd relapsed and died from a heroin overdose. Pretty fucked. R.I.P. Don. Story 2. This crazy, entitled, hypocritical spoiled brat of a person I was assigned in a college apartment. Everything was fine until I offered to buy a wireless router for all three of us to share. She agreed to split the cost, but then when it came out to $20 each, she threw a huge fit. She refused to pay, so I refused to give her the password. She got in my face and screamed at me, but I didn't flinch. I'm a foot taller than her and I had just gotten out of the army, lol. Then she took all of her stuff out of the common areas. Whatever. One day I needed to do dishes and her stuff had been in the dishwasher for days, so I finally just took it all out and put my stuff in instead. I came home to find all of my dishes in the sink again, covered in maple syrup. So petty and gross. Another time, I accidentally threw a single can in her trash can instead of mine. She came out on the balcony screaming at me and threw it off the third floor, where it hit my car and dented it. The final straw that caused me to move out early: we all smoked weed, including her and her boyfriend, but one day she called the cops on me for it. Thankfully I heard her on the phone with them, so I took anything incriminating and left before they got there. Most of it was my boyfriend's. Anyway, but until then my place was cooler than his. I just left it all there until I was able to move. She also got in huge screaming fights with her boyfriend and smashed his laptop and phone, so I guess I should have expected the worst from her. Story 3. Had this roommate while I was married. Dude would aggressively physically and verbally attack our youngest female roommate relentlessly, ate up tons of food, never paid for any of it. Oh my god, the messes he would make were epic. Of course he never cleaned any of it up, destroyed furniture and carpets, even left a huge puke stain on the dining room wall once. Left his body scrap everywhere, hair, slobber and snot, nail clippings, anything he dropped or spilled. At least he would bathe on the regular and didn't stink. Constantly in our faces and demanding as fuck. He did not have a single clue what boundaries and personal space were. Walked around in the house naked, right in front of us any old time without a care in the world. Literally screamed in our faces whenever he wanted something, then would attack us or our other roommate out of sheer petulance when we said no. Would have daily fits where he crashed around the house, knocking things over and screaming his head off, usually more than once a day. Medication and stuff didn't do shit for his atrocious behavior. Finally I got a divorce, moved away, and dude's behavior improved dramatically when he was the only cat in the house. I kept him until he died at 14 years old. Story 4. My ex and I moved in with his co-worker and their boyfriend. The co-worker and BF had 2 dogs. First, they stopped paying bills. They bought their own food, that's about it. I was in college at the time so I didn't work much, but my ex was suddenly paying all the bills, including their share. It was winter and we could barely afford heat. Then the roommates started accusing me of stealing their food. I never touched their food, but it was a daily occurrence. It got to the point where I barely left our bedroom because it was so awkward. One day my ex and I came home to find notes plastered all around the apartment detailing what I specifically could and couldn't touch. and accusing me of all this stupid shit. There was even a note on the door accusing me of trying to let their tiny dog out multiple times due to me not liking it, which was untrue. I liked the dog just fine and never once expressed ill will to their animals. We ended up moving out that night. I don't remember specifies of any lease, but the landlord had no issues with our sudden departure. We ended up moving back in with my ex's family. As it turns out, it was their boyfriend stealing their food and telling them it was me. He even said he witnessed me doing it. Though, I'm not sure why they accused me of trying to let their dog outside. I was actually always super careful to not do that. I still see them both around town though this happened in 2012, and I'm always a little mad when I do. My ex remained friends with the co-worker and their sister for a few years, but after we broke up I don't know what happened. As it turns out my now fiancé lived in the same apartment. He almost even had the same roommates, but they moved out before he moved in. We were not friends at the time, so it's kind of funny. Story 5. My ex and I lived with another couple for about a year. The guy was friends with my ex. The girl was agoraphobic and barely left her bedroom, and turned the heat all the way up in the winter as well into the spring. One night I came home from work and the heat hit me like a train. The thermostat read 82 degrees. They thought any cool airflow would make them sick. I almost passed out in the kitchen once during the summer because they refused to turn on the AC. And we lived on the top floor. One day we got in a huge fight over the AC and they finally broke and let me turn it on. The girl acted she was sick for days after, sniffling and walking around in a heavy sweatshirt on the rare occasion she left her room. They were friends with this other couple who would come over occasionally and bring their massive Doberman with them. Our apartment was not very big. They'd stay until like 2 a.m. and if one of the friends used the bathroom, which was right next to our bedroom, the dog would panic and whine and scratch the door. Our roommate would also feed the dog raw chicken wings by throwing them on the carpet and not washing his hands after touching the raw meat, so I'd have to go around and sanitize everything because no one else cared to do it. Because the girl couldn't speak English and never left her room, she didn't work and was lonely. So they had a $1,500 Bengal cat shipped over from Ukraine to keep her company. They refused to get it spayed. It would rip through the apartment and just yell. It even attacked my ex's arm a few times, which is kind of funny now, in hindsight. They'd feed this kitten raw steak tips and keep her locked in the bedroom, then wonder why she was sick. When we finally moved out, neither of them lifted a finger or offered to give us any help with anything. The girl hid in her bedroom and the guy sat on the couch and played FIFA. It was a very weird year for sure. Story 6. Before he moved in, BF and him made a deal that since I was unexpectedly moving in, I would cover most of the electric bill. I have a lizard, so I compensated more due to heat lamp effect, and roommate had a set amount he would pay no matter what. It was ridiculously cheap. Dude would crank the AC to something insane like 60 when we weren't home or at night when we slept or off on vacations and leave the windows open. It could be 40 outside. He would turn the AC on with or without windows open. He said my kids watching TV during the day is the reason why the electric bill is so high and wouldn't pay for the issues he caused with it. My electric bill would be $400 easily because of him. He'd eat various foods intensely. When I say intensely, I mean sit down and consume an entire package bag box of whatever. I've seen him in one sitting consume a bulk bag of hot dogs I bought for my kids that was to last a week. Then he moves on to the next thing. Reddit. When I say this guy was annoying in all those aspects, he was, but nothing compares to the ultimate sin he committed, the ultimate thing that collectively makes everyone's skin crawl and we all unite in agreement. This asshole brought roaches into our apartment then. Bro brought bedbugs into our home and said nothing about for more than a month. It took me catching him laundering his sheets to find out. I knew he was dirty as fuck, and in those entire 2 years we lived together he never cleaned or vacuumed once in his room or bathroom. So seeing him launder his sheets and vacuuming made me suspicious. That's when he confessed. He couldn't pay for the fucking treatment, so I had to shell out this insane amount of money for treatment to be rid of them, and in the time he never told our mutual friend he had them and was bringing his backpack full of shit to our mutual friend's house after leaving it in his room all day. When our friend asked if we could come hang out, we told him no, we had bed bugs, and he flipped out. Of all the shit he has done, the grossness, stealing toilet paper and laundry detergent and various other shit I could care less about. Putting holes in my garage BC he can't drive, him fucking up my car because he can't back out of a garage, so much other shit. It was the bedbugs that did it for me. Story 7. Had a roommate who was really into jujitsu and went multiple times a week, but he wouldn't wash his gi after class and would throw his sweaty gi directly into the dryer. The result was you'd open the dryer to the worst spicy BO smell imaginable. His hygiene in general was just terrible, and his bedroom was really close to the front door, so you'd smell his stink as soon as you came in the house. We'd tried talking to him, but he just never got the hint. I moved out, and 6 or so months later all the roommates decided to also move. I had to go back and scrub his room top to bottom because he just packed up and left and didn't clean a thing, and I felt responsible because our landlord was a family friend. Scrubbed his absolutely repulsive room and paid hundreds to get a junk pickup for the shit they left behind. Oh, also he'd wheel his motorcycle inside and park it on the new basement carpets. This only started after I left. When I found out, I tried to tell him how fucking stupid that is when he had a covered carport to keep it. He just didn't get it. Why does your fucking Harley need to be kept inside? Result was the carpet got trashed in those few months, unsurprisingly. Sheesh, don't miss those days. Story 8. Alcoholic, would come home drunk and eat my food, and then call me a monster when I asked her to replace it. Note: she never had food, only booze. Would smoke in bed, not allowed AMD, fall asleep with a lit cigarette. I would ask her to clean, and I am in no way a neat freak, but she would call me Monica. She eventually got fired from drinking vodka at work, so she then wore alcoholism as a badge of honor. Victim: I came home one night to an ambulance as she had taken too many Indian Xanax. I said I would keep them for her and give them whenever she needed. She had hundreds. Eventually I was the bad guy for being controlling. I wasn't. I was trying to figure out how to help her, and we just stopped speaking or being home at the same time until the lease expired. To this day she thinks I was a terrible roommate and has no self-reflection at all.